The Kingston Penitentiary, formerly Canada's most famous and notorious prison. Here, fortress walls, surveillance towers, and a battalion of armed guards kept the country's worst criminals solidly locked inside. This is a place where people were intensely confined. But just across the street, a new and very different institution arises. The goal of this institution might be the opposite: to open doors and minds, and to promote the healing possibilities of human self-exploration and freedom. I have had the luck and privilege of living and working in some amazing cities: New York, Montreal, Toronto. But one day, I ended up here. Cold, barren. Where is everybody? I thought I had made a terrible mistake. But life is full of surprises, and so is Kingston, Ontario. This city lost its primary institution, its most famous symbol, and its legendary band. But as I watched Kingston renew and transform itself, I would be renewed and transformed in ways that I never imagined. This is that story. Dear Lord, people smoking marijuana in broad daylight in a city park. Actually, people here are inhaling cannabis as part of a formal wellness program at a municipally supported psychedelic exploration facility.
So we're located here in Portsmouth Village, right in between the old Kingston Penitentiary and right in front of Numa Center for Social Wellness, which is the old Portsmouth Town Hall. The city was granted from the federal government to bring health innovation to Kingston. We build online and experiential learning solutions to help safely and accessibly integrate psychedelics into the mental health care and the wellness systems. How did I get involved? So I have had my own extensive history with mental illness, and it really started for me, I guess, when I was a kid. I was born with a low-functioning 5-HTT-LPR genotype, which is the gene that helps to express serotonin in the brain. Serotonin, as you may or may not know, is a key chemical to help regulate our mood and our mental health. And so because of that, I suffered many great mental health challenges in my life. When I was 10 years old was when I sort of first started to experience symptoms of anxiety and depression, and over the years after that, it became worse and worse. And in my 20s, it became suicidal ideation. And I tried many things.
I'm guessing you just didn't know why?
Yeah. And my parents were pretty, I guess, holistic in the way that they would approach it. Very open, a great relationship with my parents about all that. And they didn't want to push me too hard down one route or another. And I kind of got to my wit's end when I was about 28. That's when suicidal ideation really was starting to kick in. And luckily I had a friend who had experienced psychedelics in a really intentional way, and he suggested, because I'd shared and opened up with him, he suggested I try a session with him, and he kind of opened my eyes and mind and heart, I guess, in a lot of ways to what psychedelics could do for what I was experiencing. I tried psychedelics when I was in high school, like everyone does, recreationally, just sort of with friends around the campfire. And so they were just sort of a party thing. They were just sort of a friend's sort of, drug that, you might get into a bit of trouble in terms of like psychologically not being able to handle certain things, but in general, just like a happy, fun experience with my friends. So when I was first exposed to it, I was kind of like, I don't know, I've done this before. Doesn't seem like it's gonna help me, or else it already would have. But in this new way that this friend of mine shared with me and showed me, It was really intentional, really introspective, not like doing it with a bunch of friends around a campfire without any intention. And that really kind of changed my perspective on it. I would say suicidal ideation is completely gone. And that's when things really clicked for me, because it was like, wow, this is actually going to cure me of that. That's something I need to think about more. I need to look into more. I need to see how I could be more a part of making that more accessible for other people.
Because cannabis was recently legalized in Canada, the Numa Center can hold psychedelic cannabis sessions within a city-operated building. With psychedelic cannabis, the emphasis is probably less on getting high in the classic sense and more on paying attention to one's internal experiences, feelings, memories, and psychology. People set intentions for a journey and often work towards a goal. Some report meaningful insights and healing breakthroughs. Some just get the munchies.
First, I'm going to just guide you on a brief meditation, just a brief mindfulness meditation. I'll give you a prompt that will potentially help you with the ceremony today, just to sort of guide you and sort of anchor you into your intention. We'll go into what we call the pre-flight chat. We'll take like a 5 to 10 minute break, and that'll just be, going to the washroom, getting water. And then once we're back from the break, what we'll do, which is going to be a little bit different today, is we're going to sit outside, and that's where we're going to do our guided imbibing. Once we're done out there, we'll come back in. And at that point, you'll basically be lying down. So you're invited at that point to lie down. Best way to be lying down is heads closer to the altar and feet out. I will put on a music set, and it'll be about an hour in the music set, which can seem like 5 minutes, it could seem like 3 hours. So it's kind of neat how time gets dilated in that.
We have one of the largest psychedelic societies per capita in all of Canada, maybe in all of North America, for the city that we're at, 133,000, 135,000 people. Our psychedelic society is pretty big, about 600 people I think now. And so there's a really robust, intentional grassroots community that has sort of been at the helm of this for 10 or 15 years now, thanks to Rich Tayo, who's led the way there. And so I think that Kingston, because of that grassroots sort of foundation, has the potential, with the right partnerships, the right people embracing it, we can create something really special here. Kingston is a small town, but it has big city potential. Where we're located, we have the potential to reach about half the population of Canada, I believe, in Ontario. We're so close to the major cities, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal. We're 2 hours from Syracuse, New York. So we're a great center for what could be a hub for psychedelic care, I think, in Canada. We've got the amazing Lake Ontario right next to us here, and then north of the city, we're full of all kinds of lakes and wildlife and wild land. So that just physically, the location of Kingston not only makes it a perfect location, but the people here that I was talking about before and the institutions that we have, they're all jumping in on this. Queens has a center that they've opened up, led by Ron Shore and David Clements, and they're doing a lot of really amazing research there, specifically around psilocybin.
The biggest thing we're part of is psilocybin for alcohol use disorder trial. That's sponsored by Clairvoyant Therapeutics. That is a phase 2B clinical trial. So it means it's multi-site and multi-country. So we're one of 12 sites enrolling patients, and obviously alcohol use disorder is a widespread prevalence. It's got known comorbidities that are quite significant. And psilocybin scenes too, in the trials that have been conducted so far, have pretty impressive results when combined with motivational enhancement therapy. So the thing about psychedelics is you generally combine them with other forms of therapy and modalities, and you get this amplified or synergistic effect. And beyond that, we have 2 kind of individual studies through different faculty looking at the impact of microdosing, one on sensory motor skills and the other on pain perception. So it's really just beginning. A lot of, part of my role here at Queen's is to help develop our capacity. And really, there are a lot of institutions that have jumped into psychedelic research, but because it's so new, you really want to make sure you're taking your time, investing in quality trials, and making sure our clinicians and providers are educated along the way.
And we've been exploring the last 6 months of how to do that the most effective way. And we're landing on things like education, harm reduction.
Kingston has started hosting public psychedelic storytelling sessions where people publicly describe their use or misuse of psychedelics.
Psychedelic lessons. I believe set and setting are critical. I always set an intention, even if it's just to enjoy myself and reset my mind. I make sure I'm with people who make me feel safe.
Here, this says on psilocybin, but this is also the picture of what a kid's brain looks like in terms of the number of connections that are made. By the time we become an adult, this one says placebo, but by the time we become an adult, we've actually pared down all of the connections for efficiency's sake. We have tracks, we know how to think clearly, we get from spot A to spot B without going through all the alternatives. But the truth is that kids who are 3 or 4 or 5 years old can often beat adults in lateral thinking tests because they have all of those connections still open. And that, to me, that was really interesting. I thought, well, what if psychedelics could help me think in different ways about my life and think about, maybe that would be a spiritual kind of approach to this.
Kingston's Queen's University hosted the first ever Canadian Psychedelic Medicine Conference in 2022. And despite the fact that it's illegal in Canada, a new store opened downtown which brazenly sells magic mushrooms. And now, Kingston's St. Lawrence College will be offering its first courses on psychedelic wellness and experience.
Works really well for those suffering from really severe illnesses. But for those that, like we said, are kind of empowered to transform and they've been labeled clinically well but are feeling that there's something else there, psychedelics can really have a lot of potential for that.
Relationship with St. Lawrence College is super exciting. It's a first of its kind relationship in a lot of ways, with industry and academia coming together to create an industry training, we'll call it for now, on the practitioner side. But it's really a training for the movement towards using psychedelics for healthcare and for wellness. We are very intentional on the language we're using and the categories of where we're trying to fit all of this into, because it's really important that we don't just include it as a practitioner-only level of education. It's really important that we advocate for the knowledge exchange for the individual as well, which is why we created this Foundations for Psychedelic Exploration program with them, where we can develop a professional accreditation for practitioners being anything from sort of the MD, the psychologist, psychiatrist, psychotherapist, or the wellness provider, maybe the RMT, the yoga instructor, the traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, the naturopath, or the nutritionist, because we feel like there's a spectrum of providers at various different levels. You're not going to St. Lawrence College. The training is trained through us as an industry training, but the assessment goes through St. Lawrence College, and it's a micro accreditation for the field of psychedelic exploration is what we've created. And that's a really cool, broad term that you're talking about, sort of the past, like thinking of this to be possible. To me, it blows my mind that we were able to get something like that created in this day and age where that's become an industry in itself. We're now sort of creating the industry as we move through it. People are really excited. Really, really excited. And it's kind of all over Canada right now. People are jumping in on it. And as we grow and, put more intention into selling it and getting out, getting the word out across the country, I just continue to anticipate it growing.
Although psychedelic cannabis probably wasn't the wildest experience of my life, people did describe having significant journeys and insights. I can see how it seemed to help people understand and challenge themselves in new areas. Perhaps, though, what is amazing is that this is one of the few places currently in North America where you can do this kind of thing with municipal support.
We're just very grateful for the potential that we've been given and shown. And that to me shows massive potential for what's possible when it comes to Kingston leading the way as the psychedelic experiential learning hub.
Yes, this is just a bunch of people smoking pot in a park. Or you might say this is part of an international psychedelic renaissance being partially led out of Kingston, Ontario.